I'm looking at the New York Times this morning. Frank Bruni, who is an opinion columnist, op-ed columnist, his headline on his column, I love what Frank Bruni writes. I wish I could write as well as he does, because he can put in writing in 250 words what it takes me 1,000 words and lots of profanity to say. And Frank Bruni doesn't use any cuss words. But I really like his point of view. Frank Bruni. So this morning I see this headline over his column: Is God skipping the Democratic primary? What? And the subheading to it was the candidates' reticence about religion is excessive and unwise. I thought, what? Now, just as you know, Frank Bruni is a gay man, and as a result of his sexual orientation, the Christians would like to see him burned alive. They hate him. They don't want anything to do with him. The Muslims, same way. The Jews, comme ci, comme ça. But the Christians, the people that the Democratic candidates have to appeal to the most, subscribe to a religion that says that Frank Bruni is some kind of a subhuman beast because he's homosexual. So when I saw the headline, "Is God skipping the Democratic primary?" I thought, what the hell does that mean? So I start reading. In the first couple of sentences, Frank writes, "The most recent Democratic debate lasted 3 hours, and according to one transcript I checked, exceeded 30,000 words. Almost none of the words, was about religion." Wouldn't that be a plus? Wouldn't that be a good thing? But he went on. "God came up only in throwaway phrases. God bless Kamala," said Cory Booker, praising Kamala Harris for discussing reproductive rights. "Joe Biden scattered 'for God's sake' and 'God forbid' like croutons on his word salads. Tulsi Gabbard explained the meaning of aloha, noted that, quote, 'we're all God's children,' end quote." When Cory Booker fleetingly mentioned his participation in a bipartisan Bible study group in Congress, I, Frank, snapped to attention. This was the closest the debate came to acknowledging the importance of faith in many people's lives. That's where I thought, now wait a minute, Frank. This is not about faith. This is about fascistic religion. Religion is not faith. I mean, Jesus Christ said it anyway. "Where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there's my church," quote, quote, if he said anything. So here, one of my opinion writing heroes has written a column that says the Democrats are missing the boat because they don't talk about God or religion. Then he goes on to say this: "While the percentage of Americans who don't identify with any religion has grown significantly over the past decade, up from 17% to 26%, according to a survey by the Pew Research Center, it's still the case that more than half of Americans say that they pray daily, and 45% attend religious services at least once a month." Okay, I don't have a problem with that, except I think it's insane. But if more than half Americans say they pray daily, okay, prayer, when you get right down to it, are just affirmations anyway. You're talking to yourself. You're putting positive messages into your own head. And if you want to phrase it as though, if one wants to phrase it as though one is talking to an not imaginary, but a supreme being hanging out somewhere in a place called heaven, okay. and 45% attend religious services at least once a month. Okay. See, I'm trying to make it clear. I don't have any problem with that. It's when they start telling me that I am somehow less of a human or condemned to eternal torture and pain, or somehow I don't measure up to their standard on their religion, which is evangelical Christianity. Most Protestant denominations won't get in your face and say, you're going to burn in hell. Evangelicals, that's one of the first things out of their mouths. So I'm reading this and I'm thinking, but Frank, I don't have a problem with people practicing religion. The problem I have is bringing it into the public square, bringing it into religion and using it as a litmus test as to whether or not you are deserving of the same rights as a believer. That to me is bullshit. But let me go on. He says half of Americans say they pray daily. Okay. And 45% attend religious service at least once a month. Okay. Frank writes, but you wouldn't know it to tune into the Democratic primary. But wouldn't that be a good thing? The fact that they leave religion out of it, whether you believe it's bullshit like I do, or if you believe it's some kind of a foundational aspect of human development, which I don't, why bring it into politics? Let me go on. If many Republican candidates travel far out of their way toward the bogs of histrionics and hypocrisy to recruit the almighty into electoral service, you hear what he's saying here. Many Democrats steer clear of religion. Why, yes! But Frank, that's a good thing. But he goes on. That's partly understandable, even admirable, he says. That Democrats steer clear of it. That's partly understandable, even admirable. In light of the rightful separation of church and state, they don't want to be seen as spotlighting or peddling any one creed. Yes! Yes, Frank! Then he hits me with the kicker. But it's not necessary and it's not smart. Leaving religion out? President Trump and his Republican allies are poised to paint Democrats as unhinged lefties, not only in terms of health care and taxes, but also in terms of cultural issues, including abortion and LGBTQ rights. Yes, they are. And some Democratic presidential candidates are already playing into their hands. Beto O'Rourke, for example, recently seemed to call for religious groups that don't support marriage equality to lose their tax-exempt status. Well, they don't have to support marriage equality. Why don't they just stay neutral? Jesus never got married. If you believe the Gospels, the Gnostic Gospels would tell you something different. But Jesus never got married. Did any of the disciples get married? I'm not sure. I don't think so. So why is marriage equality a political issue to begin with? And if a religious group that doesn't support marriage equality, should they lose their tax-exempt status? Of course they should. I'm not saying they have to support it, which is what Frank is saying, but don't condemn it. It's none of your fucking business. If I want to marry a man or a woman, it's none of your business, church. You don't sanctify my marriage. The state does. As I've said before, there's not a marriage ceremony in America that doesn't end this way, with the religious figure saying, and now by the power vested in me by the state of blank, I pronounce you man and wife. Not, now by the power invested in me by God. They don't say that. You don't go to a church to get a marriage license. You go to the county registrar's office. Whew. Anyway, he calls Beto O'Rourke's position, an outlier position that Trump immediately seized on and railed against. Trump saying anything about marriage equality? That pig? Of course. Bruni goes on, Democrats should make it harder for Trump to vilify them as enemies of so-called traditional values. No, that's not traditional values. Frank, God damn it, Frank! Christianity supported slavery. Christianity condemns homosexuals like you. Christianity supports war. Christianity says if you're not a Christian, you're going to burn in hell for all eternity. What the fuck are you talking about? Traditional values. Traditional insanity. But those are values? I wonder if Frank got up the day he wrote this and smoked a doobie and just lost his fucking mind for however long it took him to write this. Democrats should make it harder for Trump to vilify them as enemies of so-called traditional values if they talked a bit more about spirituality and religion. But they're not the same. They're not the same. Religion is a set of rules and laws and condemnations and punishments and rewards. Spirituality is about developing an aspect of human beings that fits right in mind, body, spirit. It's an intangible, it's an unquantifiable aspect of consciousness. It has not a fucking thing to do with religion. Religion teaches you who to hold in contempt. It teaches you who it's okay to kill. It teaches you who it's okay to hate. It teaches you if you don't believe what they believe, your immortal soul, as if there is one, will be condemned for eternity. Not 1,000,000 years, not 1,000,000,000,000 years, not 1,000,000,000,000 years. Fucking eternity. That's spirituality? No. That's madness. That's fascism. Come on, Frank. Oh!
Greetings, truth seekers. It's that time of year again. Time to help your humble and obedient podcaster keep it lit by keeping the lights on in the Malloy studio with a podcast pledge drive. All October, we are giving away freebies, goodies, and gifts as thank yous for subscribing or renewing your Malloy podcast at the Trump recession level reduced price of $49 a year. It's a different giveaway each week, truth seekers. Everything from an autographed copy of Mike's book, Colored Ice Cream, to my holiday baked goods. Already have a Malloy podcast? Well, it makes a great gift. And remember, podcast subscribers also get exclusive access to the weekend bonus shows, which might be hosted by Mike or by me. We even have a teen show coming up featuring Molly and her friends. Just visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe or renew today. Keep it lit.